I want to introduce my our guest here. I know he's getting ready to go teach a class, and we'll talk about that. But we talked earlier, my career's path was shaped by a trifecta discovery, okay? So I had John Belushi on Saturday Night Live, Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer on Chicago radio, and then I heard Flo and Eddie's work with Frank Zappa, and that was an epiphany that kind of gave birth to my development as an artist and a performer. So it's a great honor to welcome the man I wanted to be when I grew up, the incredible Mark Volman, Flo of Flo and Eddie and the Turtles. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to hear you.
Well, it must be a slow news day if I'm...
Slow news day. Yes, indeed. Well, you know, the first time I heard Billy the Mountain, I must have been 12, and I was like, this is the most amazing, funny thing I've ever heard. And then you know how it is, not so much today, but in the old days, you'd have to, you know, learn and look up, you know, in record stores. Well, these guys were the Turtles. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I know them. And then I saw 200 Motels, and that, you know, destroyed my life.
Yeah.
But
you know, so much of that was just on the fly, and especially with the Zappa experience coming out of the Turtles, we didn't really know what to expect. And Frank was so open to creating immediacy and allowed Howard and I so much room to develop improvisationally that a lot of it was very much driven by the comedy of, you know, Steve Dahl and John Belushi and those type of characters were really vivid and exceptionally, they were like Shrek, you know, all of those, including Flo and Eddie, and I look at them as kind of these characters we created. They're like these big, overblown teddy bears, all of those characters you kind of mentioned, and we sort of always saw ourselves as being able to create within the characters that Flo and Eddie, along with Frank Zappa, allowed us to create. As the Turtles, we were very limited, and that was to singing the hit songs of the Turtles, and not because we didn't want to grow, but because the audience, record companies, radio stations, and everybody who was involved, really, they wanted one specific Turtles situation. And so with Frank, it really, I guess that, I feel like our careers as comedy really got to flourish.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then in addition to your musical careers, you and Howard are responsible for creating incredibly innovative radio. Tell us about your radio days.
Well, radio was probably in the days that we were given the opportunity at K-Rock in Los Angeles, we sort of were discovered by Shadow Stevens. And Shadow was creating product for K-Rock as not only as a disc jockey himself, but he was thinking on the bigger level himself, and saw Flo and Eddie as an opportunity as a producer to open up doors for him. And he produced the Flo and Eddie show at K-Rock, and then he moved on to KMET in Los Angeles and took us with him. And we did radio for 2 years in the it was the most wonderful spot in as much as it allowed us to play in radio on the weekend and have the room all week to produce the show, so that it was really like creating a television show for the mind.
Right.
And the early Flo and Eddie shows were really, really insane shows. If you go back and, you know, we've recently gone back and listened to a lot of that stuff, and you know, the people who did the shows, Roger McGuinn and Jeff Lynne, and just the list of people, Todd Rundgren, Ringo Starr, I mean, and Keith Moon,
yeah.
I mean, and the fact that we could convince them that we were a show of value was pretty funny. But it would lead us eventually to Flo and Eddie getting afternoon drive in New York City, and for almost 2 years we afternoon drive at K-Rock in New York, which was it was Howard Stern all morning and
Right.
Flo and Eddie in the afternoon, and a lot of classic rock the rest of the day. And those were good experiences. I think radio, you can't do anything good casually. And,
Right.
and you really have to eat it and breathe it and really live it. And I think it wore us down. And radio is one of those things that as the ratings and as music began to change, our show became caught in that problem of a station finding an image. And it was moving from classic rock to alternative. Our show didn't really fit the dynamic of what the station was beginning to aim towards. And, it was a natural progression.
Right. Right. We're talking about Mark Volman of the Turtles, Flo and Eddie, and so much more. And the Turtles story is a textbook example of not only longevity with friendship and creativity, really unlimited creativity. Because we talk about you guys are pop stars, you were comedians, you were radio hosts, you were television hosts, but you've taken those hard-earned lessons and now you educate tomorrow's professionals. Let's talk about your work at Belmont University in Nashville.
Well, Turtles, I appreciate that. Thank you. Howard and I are still friends, and I think that was one of the grand gifts is that Happy Together really fits us. We just really still can talk to each other, and we never really argue or ever really have about situations. If either one of us feels so strongly about not doing something, the other one sort of just says, okay, it must not be worth it. And we're both fairly insightful when it comes to the feelings of what the Turtles should do. We're such music fans, and we're just really geeks when it comes. We still listen to vinyl. So
yeah,
I think that we have this perspective looking at the Turtles of how to protect them in the history, and we continue to tour about 50 shows a year because I'm now and have been for the past 13 years. I had a midlife crisis about 1991 or 92, and I had a divorce after 22 years of marriage to one of my best friend, who was my wife at the time, and still good friends with her, just not able to live with her anymore. It was the best thing that ever happened to me for the fact that it opened up my curiosity about doing other things with my free time. And school was something I had always aspired to do. And I went to college for 6.5 years in 1994 and graduated with my bachelor's degree in 97, finished my master's in fine arts in 99. And I began teaching music business courses in 1997 at Loyola Marymount, Los Angeles, and then moved to Nashville, where I live, out in Leapers Fork, Franklin, Tennessee, Williamson County, and was given an offer to actually take the reins on a new program at Belmont University, which is an industry, entertainment industry overview of the next step in entertainment, which really, they've always had an incredible music business program, but they wanted to move into areas like film, television,
right,
sports management, radio, video game, animation, and so forth. And I was offered the opportunity to chair the department for them, and I've been here now. This is my, I guess, 6th or 7th year. And so I teach as a full-time professor, spring and fall at Belmont University, and I'm the chair of the College of Entertainment and Music Business, the Entertainment Industry Studies emphasis. And we have, a songwriting emphasis, we have a music business emphasis, we have a technology emphasis, and so it's really a great opportunity for me to work with young singers and musicians. About 150 students pass through my classes every semester, and I love in fact, I have classes this morning starting in about 45 minutes.
Well, thanks for taking time with us today. When you hear about the kids going to the school and learning business, boy, wouldn't that have been something if all the Turtles and the Raspberries and the Beatles, if they had the business sense, Well,
one of the interesting things as I've grown into this industry, so many of the people who I grew up with, the musicians, and the people you're talking about, Steve Cropper, who I see a lot here in town, Felix Cavallari, Tommy James, Rob Grill, all these, Carl Chiamarisi, all of these great singers and part of music history. I find myself doing a lot of question and answering and consulting with all of them who call me with lots of questions about ownership and intellectual property, and they are curious about what they missed out on.
Mm-hmm.
And their ownership for most of them is very small. I spoke with Frankie Valli recently, and we were talking about the fact that him and Bob Gaudio own all of the original recordings, and they're very unique in as much as they're one of the groups from that era that had the business savvy.
Right.
Bob was very savvy about business, not Frankie so much,
right?
But Bob really was, and so it's very interesting as I've grown into this fabulous. And I say blessing because it truly is a grand opportunity to work with so many young, and they're very naive about reality when it comes to the concepts of business. And so it's great for me because I kind of can look at the history of popular music from the fact I was in it, and then I can look at where we are today in the industry of entertainment and music. And then we must sort of project as a class and as a body of people trying to create the next generation musically, creatively, artistically, how to apply that to our lives. Because really part of being in the music business immediately is understanding it's a short-lived industry in terms of as an artist.
Yeah.
Because of the progression and the way time is, and the way art works, it turns over very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey that a young musician or singer goes on, if it lasts a long time, you're very, very lucky. And I was lucky to get to work with not only my partner in a lifetime commitment to this project we're in called the Turtles, but Frank Zappa gave us a real wonderful, wonderful perspective.
Yeah.
And he was able to kind of look at life and say, life is to create forever within the context of a career, but not to review until you're done creating. And his thing was that each individual project was unique to a particular artist, creating a lifetime of a body of work. And that body of work is when, there's probably one big review will come in at the end and say, you did okay. And that really opens up the door to the concepts of failure and success, and realizing that success and failure really function individually together, and that without failure, you never have a perspective on your success. And that was Frank really helped me see that it gave me, really rooted me in realizing that the continuing saga of artistic development is really the art form, not
Right.
any singular project you do or any single hit song or any. So you can't worry about a project not succeeding. It might be its development stage to the next project that's going to be very successful. And what is successful anyway? I mean, Frank Zappa never sold as many records as Taylor Swift, but who's more influential in the history of popular music?
You're right.